Okay, I need to have a real conversation with you guys. So, a lot of people wonder why I know so much I know, and they think that I'm like really smart or something. I'm not. I'm smart enough to figure things out. But nonetheless, I was a school teacher. I spent 10 years in college for a 6-year teaching degree. Okay? I was there honing my craft. I was also poor and couldn't afford to go straight to a university. But what I learned going through college is that a lot of people study just enough to get by, just enough to get their job, just enough to get an A, just enough to get a B, just enough to pass a class. They're always learning just enough. And so what most people in society know, and this is what the Rockefellers who created education pretty much did, and people know just enough. That's what people know, just enough. So when you got your lawyers, your judges, and all these politicians, and all these people that you think are so intelligent, these doctors, these lawyers, you think they're so intelligent because they have a piece of paper that says they are. They know just enough. They didn't hone their craft. You don't know them that well. Some people do hone their craft. People from other countries hone their craft because they want to be able to compete with the people in America. But again, because they come from a poor country with not many benefits, But most people, majority of people going through college and other places know just enough. And so don't get intimidated by these judges. Don't get intimidated by these lawyers. Understand that they know just enough, which means there's always loopholes, there's always workarounds, there's always laws that they don't know. And then when you throw that in their face, they think that you're stupid because they have a piece of paper that says they're smarter than you, when in actuality, they have a piece of paper that says they know just enough. And so people aren't as smart as you give them credit for. So don't worry, fight these people, go to court, fight it, study it, learn it, okay? So you lawyers and you judges out there, what you don't realize is you're doing just enough to do your job. And your job is wrong. You're violating the Constitution because you know just enough. You know just enough to follow state orders. You know just enough to follow court orders. You know just enough to follow county orders. You know just enough to follow case and policy. But what you don't know is that you're violating the Constitution on a daily basis. You're putting your lawyers, judges, and police officers in a very difficult predicament to where they're violating constitutional rights, just as you're violating constitutional rights. Because those states, counties, and whatnot, they do not have the correct power to be enforcing state and county codes and policies. They're doing it because, this law says that you can do this, and this law says you can do that, all the way down to where you're eventually just violating the Constitution. It's called breaking down conditions. Take this from me, a union man. Okay, breaking down conditions means once you give a dude an inch, he'll take a mile, and companies do it all the time. We're supposed to have 15-minute breaks according to our contract with the union. Okay, cool. And then the contractor says, 10 minutes. Just a 5 minutes difference, no big deal. Next thing you know, it's 5 minutes. It's no big deal. Next thing you know, you don't need breaks. Don't be a pussy. Whatever, And before you know it, you don't have that in your contract anymore because you got so used to not even using your breaks anymore that you don't even have breaks. And you do the same thing with the Constitution. You say, I know this is the constitutional law, but we're going to let the judges reinterpret the law, and we'll call it case law. And they'll reinterpret it so we can see what it really means, because the Constitution's way too vague. Okay, we'll allow that, but that is actually arbitrary to the Constitution, because the Constitution is black and white. But you say the case law allows you to violate the Constitution because you're not violating, you're just reinterpreting the meaning. And so then after you reinterpret the meaning, then somebody else reinterprets that meaning with another case law, and so forth and so on. And there's so many laws out there, and you lawyers know this, and you judges know this, but you are so indoctrinated to believe that what you're learning is fact when it's not. It's violating the Constitution. But there are so many laws that are arbitrary to one another. They contradict one another because language is ambiguous. Therefore, the law that is written in language will be ambiguous. But you don't realize that because you took your education and you did just enough. And you did just enough. And the way I know you did just enough is because I was a teacher. I was an educator. I watched it. 10 years of college, I watched everybody get just enough for their education so that they can go on, especially those of you who got your education online, because you didn't go in person. You didn't learn a lot of things that you miss out on when you're doing something online. It's not about black and white education. It's about being able to question and learn and be in the classroom and understand and get the teacher's perspective. And there's so many things that are lost in the online education. You think nothing's lost in the online education? You look at what happened during COVID. A lot of children lost a lot in education when they did it online during COVID. It's just a perfect example. You just can't think that deep like I can, I imagine. I just can't explain why people can't see what I'm seeing. But nonetheless, you learned just enough. And when you're learning just enough, that's called indoctrination. You're being indoctrinated to believe and learn what they tell you to believe and what they tell you to learn, and you don't get the chance to challenge and figure out what's really true. You don't get to have those discussions, those deep discussions. Oh, you say you do, but until you're in person, no one sits there and gives you the fair chance to talk. And therefore, our education system, everything about it, whether it be online or not, is a bunch of indoctrination to follow rules the way they want you to follow rules. And therefore, everything you learn when you're learning just enough isn't just enough. It's just enough to do what they want you to do. So you judges and lawyers are following policy, following codes, because you're doing the same thing in your job that you did in your education. You're sitting there and you're enforcing codes and policies, but you're ignoring the Constitution. You're ignoring the constitutional rights of people. And that's why I'm fighting what I'm fighting. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm doing to protect the children, because I see how you courts, you judges, you caseworkers, you politicians, and you parents are all manipulating the laws and constitutions and all that to your advantage, not to the child's, to yours. And the child can't defend themselves. The child doesn't get allowed to go into court. The child doesn't get allowed to speak for themselves, because you determine that they're too young to make up their own mind, too young to understand things. But I've known children that are smarter than 30-year-olds. I've known 30-year-olds that are stupider than children. You're making your own assumptions. Oh, and you back it up with psychology, another indoctrinated junk science that isn't founded in anything factual. The only thing factual in this world is math. And when you do the math, there's a lot of things you can figure out. But you guys don't realize that. You can figure out things with syntax language using math. There's so many things you can figure out with math, but you guys don't realize that. You reinterpret everything into the ambiguity of language, utilizing the ambiguity of language to reinterpret everything and break down conditions so that you can make things however way you want them to be. Call it Satan, call it the demons, I don't care, but it is what it is. You guys are doing wrong, and we need to fix this, which is why you politicians need to pay attention, because you too got your education from knowing just enough. You did not know enough, because if you did, you would be honoring the Constitution. You would be not using the ambiguity of language to manipulate the Constitution. You would not be manipulating parents and everybody and the children and everybody in our society with your manipulations of law and codes and policies, especially state and county law, codes, and policies. And these ADR courts, which are completely unconstitutional, do not follow law, codes, and policies. They manipulate it. They'll say, oh, we're going to obey this federal law, but we're going to violate the state law. And then when you violate this federal law, here, you don't get to go grieve your constitutional injuries to the Supreme Court. All of that unconstitutional, all of that violating human rights as well as constitutional rights. So everything you're doing is wrong and a manipulation of people and the public. And this is why I'm fighting this, and because the children don't have a voice. And it's not just the courts, it's not just the judges, it's also the parents. Every damn one of you. And I was a kindergarten teacher, and I studied everything. I studied multiple subjects. I studied human psychology, child psychology, human development, child development. I studied language. I know how language is manipulated, how it's used. I've studied a lot, and I'm not stupid. But what I've seen, you guys are failing our children and failing our society. There.